Now part two of an interview I conducted with Larry King in 1988. Back in 78, I had worked with the radio show. By 88, I was with United Press International. Larry had a new book out, and I had a chance to talk to him again. At the end of part one, he was talking about a question he was asked by an interviewer once about what he would do if he was suddenly thrust into the anchor position of a network nightly TV news show with no advance warning.
And I said, right to this guy on the air, "Good evening. My name is Larry King. I've never anchored the news in my life. Tom Brokaw's had a fainting spell. I'm going to be your host for the next half hour. I've just been handed the script. We're going to do my best to bring you the news. I may turn to the wrong camera. I'm getting hand signals from people I don't know. I'm going to read it as best as I can. If you wish to tune to something else, I'll understand. But if you hang with me, I'm going to do the best job I know how from professional experience to bring you this news. That's what I do. Now, first, no one's tuning out. What's he going to do? Is he going to screw up? The audience is going to grow. Two, if I screw up, they're all with me. Nothing can go wrong. If it goes wrong, we're all in this together, guys. Okay, so I turn to the wrong camera. So what? Larry's never done this before. His job don't depend on it. Larry thumps. He breaks for commercial. There's no commercial ready to go. We're all in this with Larry together. All Larry did was be honest.
Sure.
Now, most guys, given that, would do this. Hi, I'm Leslie Forbush, sitting in for... Who am I sitting in? Tom Brokaw. And then when he turns to the wrong mic, he would look nervous and apprehensive. I don't have any of those things. Why? Because I did the simple, expedient thing. I told the audience the situation. I know that at 9 o'clock Eastern Time, every night, Monday through Friday, I'm there. Now, if there's something wrong with the camera, that's their problem. Some more engineer, I'm on. You got to be on. I love that. And radio, the same thing, 11 o'clock. I've never taped a radio show. I mean, I have in my life, but I've never taped a show for Mutual. I'm live. The clock says 11:06, and I'm on. And there's nothing anyone can do about that. And I'm in control of it when I'm on.
No one likes the word indispensable. But when it comes down to that last 20 minutes and you don't feel good, doesn't that weigh more heavily on you than it would a lot of people because you're there, and who else are they going to get? If it's coming down to airtime and something really happens, you just don't feel all that good, what happens?
You go on.
You go on.
Yeah.
And you've done that, I'm sure.
I've done shows with chest pain. I've done shows with ulcers. I had, in February, labyrinthitis. You ever have labyrinthitis? No.
Doesn't sound
you
good.
don't really want labyrinthitis. It's a kind of virus.
All right.
And they say everyone gets it once in their lifetime. In fact, there's a drug for it called Antivert that I never heard of that the druggist told me is the third most popular drug he dispenses. All right. Here's what happens with labyrinthitis, folks. It's kind of like sinus. You know, like you get sinuses in your nose in sinus season. Except labyrinthitis is a little different. The sinus canal, which is normally blocked through the ear and you sneeze, in the case of labyrinthitis, blocks your sense of balance. So, folks, you fall over. And labyrinthitis happened to me at 1:45 one morning. I stood up on a commercial break, and the floor left me.
During the middle of 5-6 hours of radio.
Right. Now I've got 15 minutes to go, and the room is spinning. I said to Chris, Chris, my technician, the room is spinning. I don't know what this is. Call a doctor and have him ready. But I'm going to do this 15 minutes. And what I did was, I adjusted my head straight. Now this whole world is... And I looked straight ahead, and I took phone calls. Now I'm sitting in total panic because I don't know what this is. You stand up and the world's spinning. I don't know what this is. But I did the 15 minutes. Then I spoke to the doctor. The next day I had it diagnosed. I had labyrinthitis for 2 weeks. I missed one day of work. And then for 2 weeks I lived with it. I learned how to compensate for it. Even though the room tilted a little, if I kept my head a certain way, it didn't move. And then eventually it went away with drugs. But... yes, you go on, unless, if you can't go on, like the show doesn't go on if you can't go on. But if you go on, the pro goes on.
Monday night of this week, I'm sitting at home thinking, what am I going to ask you? And I thought, well, I want to bring up Tom Snyder, who subbed for you when you were sick, and is now doing a show. And I wanted to get into the aspect of, hopefully, and maybe it's the fact I'm trying to make something happen, that long-form radio is coming back. That there was a time when, for example, I do a 5-minute newscast. After 2 minutes, there's an opportunity for stations to cut away. You get the feeling that if you could let stations cut away after 10 seconds, a lot of them would carry 10 seconds of news. Is there not a reacceptance of talk, of long form? Is network radio, it'll never be the same as it was.
Well, it's come back a long way. We were one of the forerunners of that. That makes me feel good. But it's an AM savior. AM is in trouble. 70% of America listens to FM. It used to be the other way around. When I started, it was 95% AM. Now it's 70% FM. And AM has to do something it can do well. And what it can do well is talk and inform. So long-form programming comes back. What do 50,000-watt stations like WR and WTOP and and KDAR and KDAL and whatever they are, KFI, what do they do with all of this? Do they just play music? They're going to get racked because you can hear music better on other stations. So they have to do other things. So they carry Major League Baseball, basketball, hockey. They carry football on Sundays. They bring to the AM listener talk, information, news. That's what they do. That's what they do best. We fit that need. Along comes others, Tom Snyder, others that fit a need. You got to do it well. If a station depends on it, it's in trouble. If Larry King and Tom Snyder are the thrust of your day, if we're leading your rating period, you're in trouble. Your local still should be the bulwark. But is there a place for it? Yes. If you're interested in long-form programming, there's never a better opportunity than the 80s and 90s, especially cable, too, because cable's showing the way to television. I have no idea what TV's going to look like in the year 2000. I do not think there will be an NBC network as you now know it, with sitcoms at 9 o'clock at night. I think there'll be sitcom channels, and all news channels, and all sports channels, and all weather channels, and all quiz show channels. There's going to be you know what television's going to look like? Radio. It's going to be formatted. It's going to be like radio. And radio is going to, and it will have this huge pie and places for everything. There'll be radio shows on cable. There's no way to even imagine what it's like. The other day I did a book tour without leaving a studio. I sat in a studio in New York and talked to 15 markets. Each one took 10 minutes. I sat there and they got on the bird and they talked to me. And I was on in Boston. And then I was on in Detroit. And I'll be on Sunday in Dallas. And nobody moved.
And the bird is saving small market radio.
Correct. And
not
the bird
having
is
to
out
pay
there.
those phone bills.
Don't have to pay phone bills. It's incredible. And it's impossible to forecast. But if I were interested in coming in today, boy, would this be a wonderful time to be coming in. Wonderful time to be coming in. More opportunities everywhere. More exposures. More outlets. You got to have faith in yourself. That I can't give you.
2 quick questions. The book is full of people you've talked to. If you could do as Steve Allen did on his show, Meeting of the Minds, and talk to people who aren't around anymore, whom would you like to have talked to?
Christ immediately. I would like to talk to Christ. I'd like to do the interview in a synagogue, which would be the only place he'd know.
Sure.
He would have no idea what a Baptist is. What is a Catholic? It would be fascinating to get his thoughts on as he looks. What is a Protestant? I mean, that would blow his mind. I mean, they had a fight inside, and as a Protestant.
That's right.
And get his view of the world, and was he the Son of God, and did he preach, and what do you think? What do you think of Judas? Lincoln would be a fascinating character because he was a manic depressive. Hitler would be way up on the list. I'd love to interview Hitler. Any interviewer worth his salt loves demonic geniuses who think they are right. Anybody who's caught up in a web of something is just wonderful to ask questions to, because they're not going to have their guard up. Hitler would have been a great interview. He would not have been political. Gaddafi would be a great guy to interview. See, Margaret Thatcher does not excite me. I mean, she can be a wonderful person and a fine leader, but she wouldn't excite me as an interviewer. Gaddafi would excite me. So my first would be Christ. Certainly American would be Lincoln. And I'd like to interview him now, looking at the scene now.
Mm-hmm. There's one big difference between talking to you now and talking to you 10 years ago at Mutual. There's no smoke in here.
No, there's no smoke, folks. He doesn't smoke anymore. I stopped on February 24th, 1987. I had a heart attack. That stopped me. I didn't stop me. It stopped me.
It stopped you. The last thing I want to ask is, in that time when you were recuperating and you were off the air, what is it like for someone who is as visible and as audible as you are to be told, hey, you're going to have to cool it for a while?
It ain't easy.
Is it as much a withdrawal, for example, in some ways, as giving up cigarettes?
No, because one, you know you're coming back, and two, you're so happy to have pulled through. Like when I woke up from surgery, I didn't think I'd wake up because everything was going so good for me, and now I got to have quintuple bypass. When I opened my eyes, I was fantastic. And I enjoyed the time off. I went down to Florida for 2 weeks. I wasn't excited about coming back. You know, when you know you got your place and you made it, you enjoy some time away. You do. I didn't have that kind of need. I always like coming back, but I don't have that need. It's a totally different thing. It's like going to a racetrack. Racetracks were a lot different when I needed the money. Now it's a lot different when you don't need the money.
Larry, thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
An interview with the great Larry King, conducted in 1988. I'm Dennis Daly.